start with this. Well, on the heels of his first professional defeat, Josh Warrington had this to say. He says, "Thank you for all the well wishes. I'm back home with family and recovering. Big congratulations to Lara. That lad can punch. The warrior will return. Hashtag Warrington-Lara." Josh also added, "Credit to Mauricio Lara. I should have boxed, kept it clever, and stuck to my boxing. I could have made it a lot easier, but I got drawn into that fight. I played his own game. Full credit to Mauricio. He came, he took an opportunity, and seized it." On whether or not he will have a rematch with Mauricio, Josh added, "Will we meet again in a boxing ring? Who knows? We only fought a couple of days ago, but if the chance comes, I'll jump at it." I have to say that Josh Warrington suffered quite a beating at the hands of Mauricio Lara, unheralded Mauricio Lara, who no one expected would do to Josh what he did to Josh. A perforated eardrum, broken jaw.
Can he come back from this?
His former foe, Herring-Frampton, doesn't seem to think so. He doesn't think Josh can bounce back from that kind of a beating. But then again, Herring-Frampton, he's got his own problems as of late, doesn't he? And we'll talk about those shortly.
What those problems are.
In spite of the beating that Josh Warrington took, and what the naysayers have to say, there's a chance that Josh Warrington can bounce back from this. Not just bounce back, but bounce back in a rematch with the same Mauricio Lara that just put that shellacking on him. There is a chance. There are a lot of people that are downplaying the hiatus that Josh had from the ring. Over a year of inactivity, and what effect that has on a fighter's timing, his sharpness, and his overall condition, his ability to take punches. I don't doubt for a second that Mauricio Lara is a hard-punching guy.
He is.
He clearly is. But Josh Warrington's ability to weather those blows...
You don't think all that inactivity had an effect?
I've seen what Josh's harsh critics have had to say immediately after that loss. Guys who have never really had a high opinion of Josh to begin with.
Even before this.
Taking this as an opportunity to continue to berate him into those. Folks, the most I can say is even a broken clock is right twice a day.
You ain't clairvoyant. You just talk a lot of shit.
If you belittle and berate almost any fighter on a long enough timeline, you're bound to be right, as undefeated records and retiring with them is seldom seen in the sport of boxing. Thus, what happened to Josh Warrington is merely an occupational hazard. Don't forget the harsh judgments and snap criticisms levied against Vladimir Klitschko all those years ago on the heels of his loss to Corey Saunders. Don't forget the snap judgments and harsh criticisms levied against Lennox Lewis on the heels of his losses to both Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. And more recently, don't forget the harsh criticisms and snap judgments levied against Anthony Joshua on the heels of his loss to Andy Ruiz. There were plenty of people in a hurry to say that guy's finished, his career is over, and he is never going to bounce back from the loss. He'll never be the same again.
Perhaps not.
Though never being the same again could be a blessing in disguise for a fighter who just suffered their first professional defeat, their first professional loss, as being the same would imply that they haven't learned from their mistake. And in order for Josh Warrington to beat Mauricio Lara in a potential rematch, he obviously can't approach the rematch the same way he did the first fight. Cavalier, stringing punches together, and not taking the man in front of him seriously.
I think he looked past Mauricio Lara.
And these aren't excuses intended to excuse Josh's loss to Mauricio so much as reconciling how it is that this former champion, unbeaten guy who's fought other top 10 fighters in this division before, how is it that he lost to this guy? This guy in particular. I happen to think that Josh Warrington was looking past this guy, and that gave Mauricio an element of surprise. Josh had no concept of the kind of puncher that stood before him in Mauricio Lara, who had 4 fights last year, where Josh Warrington hadn't had a fight in over 12 months.
You're a fool if you think that over a year of inactivity had no role to play in this.
A short-sighted one if you're dismissive of that simple fact, that Josh Warrington had not had a fight in over 12 months, and that can affect a fighter's timing, sharpness, overall condition, and in some instances, that fighter's punch resistance, as they haven't had to take any punches under the hot lights in quite some time. I think that gave Mauricio Lara an element of surprise that Josh Warrington just had no concept of.
But can he bounce back?
That's the question. And I believe that Josh can. I believe he can, because now he knows what's in front of him. Now he knows who he's dealing with.
How does he do it?
Not getting caught between the punches would definitely be a good start. You know, Josh Warrington is an artillery guy, an action guy. But it doesn't pay to be an action guy, a fighter like Mauricio Lara, who's looking to draw you out into a war, to catch you between the shots, between the punches. Josh Warrington really is the better boxer.
That's what he has to rely on with Lara.
By shortening up those combinations. Don't go stringing 3 and 4 punches together against a guy that packs a wallop like this guy packs a wallop. Because even if you are the better boxer, he's the bigger puncher. And what time has proven is you can't take what he's got. So make sure that you don't have to.
Stay off the fucking line.
I don't know that there's going to be a rematch. But if there is, there has to be a focus on simply staying off the line and working off the counter. Don't fight fire with fire.
Just stand in front of this guy letting your hands go.
With Mauricio Lara, you know you're dealing with a guy who's looking to land that home run punch. So a bit of catch and shoot, slip and hook with this particular fighter might go a long way because you know they're committed to landing that home run punch and you know they're going to throw it. The trick is not being there once that happens, not being on the receiving end of it. I think if there is a rematch, Mauricio Lara will approach that rematch, will approach that second fight with even more confidence than he did the first time out, because he knows he can hurt Josh, he knows what he can do. Thus, he's more prone to trying to land that home run punch. He's more prone to letting his hands go. Josh can use this to his advantage.
But he's got to be poised.
He has to be patient. He can't stay in character this time. He can't go out there trying to be the action guy that he's known for being. He has to be a little bit more cerebral. Moreover, Mauricio has proven that he can take Josh's best shots. Mauricio took some clean punches.
He did.
Didn't go down. Kept on coming.
Proves he's a solid guy.
Perhaps he's not the most subtle or the most nuanced, but he's no mug, and he's not going to go down off the first hard shot that lands. What that requires of Josh in order to succeed the second time out, where he didn't the first time, is a more concentrated, more conservative effort in the early rounds to still have enough steam, to still have enough left in the tank that he can land hard shots in the later rounds. Once he's
worn this guy down a little bit.
I reiterate, I don't know that Josh Warrington is or isn't going to have a second fight with Mauricio Lara. But perhaps in order to settle his own soul, a rematch might be required. Though whether or not it happens is too soon to tell. And Josh Warrington is still licking his own wounds from the first fight. No telling if there will be a second. But it is possible for Josh Warrington to avenge the loss. It's going to take some fine-tuning, some tweaks, and some patience. Josh is obviously going to have to approach a second fight differently than he did the first. So if you're asking me, can it be done? Can Josh Warrington bounce back from this? The answer is yes. Yes, he can. I'm sure that most of you have heard by now that the proposed Herring-Frampton versus Jamel Herring WBO super featherweight title fight has now been postponed as a result of Herring-Frampton suffering a hand injury in preparation for the match. And you know, I never liked Carl's chances in this thing. I just didn't.
Still don't.
Regardless of how Jamel Herring looked against Oquendo, the task before Carl, ahead of his proposed fight with Jamel, it seemed like a very tall order for Carl. Carl wants to become a 3-division champion, and in order for that to happen, he's got to get past the very statuesque southpaw Jamel Herring, who is a stick-and-move guy. He is a jabber. Herring-Frampton really is on the smaller end of the spectrum as far as super featherweights go.
Not a natural super featherweight.
What the fight would require of Carl in order to secure the victory would be for Carl to slip and slide his way past the southpaw jab of the very statuesque Jamel Herring in the hopes that he can get close enough to that guy to land hard shots. And even that in and of itself seemed like a tall order to me. With this injury, creates an environment to where even if Carl can get past the southpaw jab of Jamel Herring, once he gets close enough to that guy to land hard shots, if he does, is the hand going to hold up?
In this fight, Carl has to be the aggressor.
Can't possibly hope to win this thing boxing from the outside because he just ain't got the wingspan for it. He is the much smaller fighter in the fight, facing a very statuesque stick-and-move southpaw jabber. Carl's only out in this match is to bull rush Jamel Herring, slip and slide his way past that jab, stay off the line long enough that you can get close to Jamel and start landing shots.
That's it.
It's really his only chance of winning this thing because from the outside, he's a sitting duck.
Get his fucking head jabbed off.
But you tell me how confident you are in Carl's chances on the heels of this news, on the heels of him injuring his hand.
So it's postponed and they want to stage it in March.
Late March on the 27th. In the hopes that by then Herring-Frampton's hand will have healed enough that he'll be primed and ready to go.
I still don't like his chances.
Like his chances even less now than I did before. In lightweight news, per tweet from Bad Left Hook, Devin Haney versus Haney-Linares is being discussed, and the target date for the match is April 17th on DAZN. And I like the fight. I've said that before, and I'll say it here again. This is exactly what needs to happen for Devin Haney.
More fights and less sound bites.
Less tweets and dishing out more defeats. If Ryan Garcia stepping up against Luke Campbell, supposed to be a big deal of any kind, then surely Devin Haney taking on Herring-Linares, who beat Luke Campbell before Ryan Garcia, before Vasyl Lomachenko. Surely that's an adequate litmus test for young Devin Haney. I think it's a quality fight, and it could be a quality scalp, provided that Devin can collect it. Herring-Linares is a very accomplished fighter, 3-division champion, very experienced at this weight, one of the best straight right hands in this entire division. If I'm sure of nothing else, I know that Herring-Linares knows how to land that punch. This is the exact kind of fight that Devin Haney needs in the absence of a Teofimo Lopez, in the absence of a Ryan Garcia and a Gervonta Davis. If you can't get those guys in the ring, there's no sense in crying about it. On to the next. Devin Haney is a fighter who's got a lot of critics, a lot of naysayers, a lot of guys who have become quite comfortable referring to him as an email champion. And the only way to silence those critics and silence those naysayers isn't taking to Twitter and responding to what Teofimo might have said or what Tim Bradley might have said, but actually getting in the ring, showing and proving just how good he is.
You're always one fight away from a signature performance.
A young, unbeaten fighter with a high ceiling like Devin Haney is always one fight away from a stellar showing. And that's what he's missing. That's what he needs.
Not more back and forth with Teofimo.
Not more time and attention spent on fighters who don't seem all that interested in fights that just aren't about to happen. That's the reality of things. It takes two to tango. You need a willing dance partner. And if Herring-Linares just so happens to be that dance partner, I'm okay with it.
Make the fucking fight.
Jorge is coming off of 2 consecutive victories. He was last in action in February of last year. And if this fight goes down in April, it will have been over a year's time since Jorge had a fight. Though all the same, Jorge has a lot more experience and a lot more weight classes than young Devin Haney. So this is an opportunity for Devin to continue to earn his stripes and make his bones as a professional fighter.
What the kid really needs to do is just get out there and fight.
As too many stories in reference to today's lightweight division are in reference to fights that aren't even happening. And finally, just in keeping with the theme of lightweight news, Bob Arum hopes to eventually match Lopez against the winner of Taylor versus Ramirez.
Floyd Mayweather was the last American fighter who made that kind of impact as Teofimo did with the Vasyl Lomachenko fight, and will do in the future. But again, it's all periodic. Before Mayweather, Americans had Oscar De La Hoya, we had Sugar Ray Leonard. Again, boxing is such by its very nature. The talent keeps changing, but doesn't necessarily become diminished.
The plan, says Arum, is for Lopez to make a move to junior welterweight in the near future. Once he officially arrives at 140, Lopez will be matched against the winner of the upcoming full division unification between Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez, which is being positioned to take place in the month of May.
Recently, I talked to Lopez's father, and they're looking forward to moving to 140. And I'm hoping the winner of Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor, which we hope to do in May, the winner of that fight will be matched with Teofimo before long. Then he would have accomplished something great, becoming, so far as I know, the first fighter in the modern era to be undisputed champion in 2 divisions.
This is a plan that could very well come to pass because this wouldn't require Teofimo to work with the people over there at Matchroom and DAZN. It wouldn't require him to work with people over there at Mayweather Promotions, Showtime, or Fox. There are no network or promotional issues involved with Teofimo Lopez moving up to 140 pounds and facing the winner of Taylor versus Ramirez.
The focus has shifted, though, hasn't it?
Before, the plan seems to have been that the winner of Taylor versus Ramirez would subsequently move up in weight to the welterweight division, 147 pounds, and thereby be fed to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford, we all know, for the longest time now has been facing a scarcity of opponents. The plan seems to be to match Teofimo Lopez against the winner of this fight, while the people over there at Top Rank attempt to negotiate a situation between Terence Crawford and Sean Porter.
And I don't mind that pecking order.
But based on that sequence of events, based on that timetable, if the Taylor versus Ramirez fight is supposed to go down in May, and the winner of that fight is going to stay at 140 pounds long enough to see themselves fighting Teofimo Lopez, there's one fundamental problem.
What?
The winner of that fight is supposed to satisfy their mandatory challenger in Jack Catterall. That was the agreement. that Jack would step aside and allow the undisputed 140-pound title fight to happen so long as
He's got next.
he gets the winner.
Teofimo says he wants to be undisputed in 2 weight classes.
We can't do that if the winner of Taylor versus Ramirez ends up surrendering the title to Jack Catterall. So some reconciliation is going to be needed when it comes to that, because Jack is going to want his title shot as soon as a winner emerges in the Taylor versus Ramirez fight. It's conceivable that Teofimo Lopez, upon moving up in weight, can become a mandatory challenger by way of either the WBC, the WBA, or the IBF. But as far as the WBO, there's already a WBO mandatory challenger lying in wait.
Perhaps after the Cambosos fight, Teofimo moves up.
Maybe he does. Maybe he dips his toe in the pool of the 140-pound division before inexorably locking horns with the winner of Taylor versus Ramirez, who will have a mandatory challenger to satisfy in Jack Catterall. Essentially, Teofimo vying to become an undisputed champion in 2 different weight classes puts that fight
At either the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
unless the winner of the fight vacates the WBO title, surrenders it to Jack Catterall. But then again, if the winner of the fight does that, Teofimo won't be able to become an undisputed champion at 140 pounds. He'll have to face the winner of Taylor versus Ramirez, then pick up the WBO title from Jack.
Pretty much fucks that plan up.
You know that Uncle Bob always has had a way with the WBO, but in this situation, it really is hard to reconcile how they could make all of this happen in a timely fashion, because I get the impression that what Teofimo wants to do is get that shot straight away.
I don't know if he's going to be able to do that.
Unless he makes it through the Cambosos fight and subsequently moves up in weight and challenges Jack Catterall to get him out of the picture, to get him out of the way.
Then maybe it could happen.